Head coach Kellen Moore is making all the right calls off the field, and that's why the New Orleans Saints are building a contender.
You are Locked On Saints, your daily New Orleans Saints podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is good, Who Dat Nation and Who Dat family? I am your host, your friend, Ross Jackson, New Orleans native, your New Orleans Saints expert and credentialed member of the media covering those New Orleans Saints as a Saints beat writer over at LouisianaSports.net. And on today's episode of Locked On Saints, players want to be a part of what New Orleans is building. Tyler Shough's imperfect performance turned out to be exactly what the New Orleans Saints needed, and Kellen Moore is winning by building a winning culture, and it's why the Saints can be contenders in 2026. We got all that and a little bit of lagniappe for you on today's episode. We appreciate you very much, whether it's your first time or your next time being here with us this time, making us your first listen and being an everydayer here on the show, which is a proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 sports podcast network. Thank you for helping us get here as we bring you your team every day. And today's episode brought to you by friends over at FanDuel. If you want to get in on the middle of all of the action while the NFL season is still here, you can check out all of the NFL live bets over at FanDuel.com today. You want to head over to FanDuel.com to get started. The New Orleans Saints head coach Kellen Moore is proving that he was the perfect hire for this team as he is building a winning culture. And that is why the New Orleans Saints can, and I'm almost willing to say will, be contenders in 2026. There were a lot of different things that went right for the New Orleans Saints in their game and their big 29-6 victory over the New York Jets. They scored the most points that they've scored so far this season, despite only scoring 2 touchdowns. Shout out to Charlie Smyth, tying a franchise record with 5 field goals in just his 4th start in American football in a regular season. Pretty incredible stuff there for Charlie Smyth. Had a really great performance from rookie quarterback Tyler Shough that we'll dive into a little bit more. Even though not everything was perfect, 308 passing yards on the day. He became the first New Orleans Saints passer to throw for over 300 yards in a single game since Derek Carr did it 2 years ago, back in 2023. Literally 2 years to the day, December 21st, in what was a Thursday night football game against the Los Angeles Rams that had a lot of garbage yards towards the end of the season, or towards the end of that game, if you will. Then you go from that to looking at Taysom Hill becoming the first ever player in the Super Bowl era to have over 1,000 rushing, receiving, and passing yards in his career. Somebody get a gold jacket ready for Taysom Hill, by the way. I'll dive into that in another episode after the season is over. I do think that Taysom Hill has a Hall of Fame claim. Maybe not first ballot, but has a Hall of Fame claim. Cam Jordan moves up to 17th on the all-time record books across the NFL with his 130th sack. Had 2 sacks on back-to-back plays, made $800,000 over the course of those 2 plays. I'd love to make over $800,000 in just a couple of minutes like Cam Jordan did on Sunday. A lot of things going right for the New Orleans Saints, but I think the thing that has gone the most right for this team is the decision that Kellen Moore made to prioritize a winning culture over draft position. It is the most important building block that you can have. Not where your first round pick is, not where your second round pick is, not what draft capital you have, not how much money do you have to spend in free agency. The biggest and best building block that you can put together as an NFL organization and as an NFL head coach is building a culture that players want to be a part of. And we're starting to see that here from the New Orleans Saints, who have now won 3 straight over the course of the season, over the course of the past 3 games, and have 5 wins, matching last year's win total. And let me tell you, the difference between last year's 5-game win total and this year's 5-game win total is absolute night and day. Couldn't be more different. Last year, the Saints won their last game, and while they were very excited about that, or when they did get their last win, while they were very excited about that, rallying around interim head coach Darren Rizzi in a big game, it didn't have the same feeling as this 5th win had, because this 5th win has a future. You're building towards something going into next year when Darren Rizzi and the Saints, as their interim head coach, and the Saints won their 5th game last year, it was still shrouded with uncertainty. who was going to be the next head coach. Will Darren Rizzi be back in New Orleans? There was so much uncertainty. And by the way, who would be back in New Orleans, especially with a head coaching change that, as we expected and as it held true, meant a complete flip of several places on the roster, particularly defensively, and several places, of course, on the coaching staff, particularly offensively over on that side. And so for the Saints, this year, getting this fifth win after starting 2-10 feels like something very different than last year's fifth win and how it all went along. The Saints could lose their next two road games against the Tennessee Titans and against the Atlanta Falcons. I don't know that I can say that they will, at least up against the Tennessee Titans, who I know just beat the Kansas City Chiefs, but we're talking about the Gardner Minshew Kansas City Chiefs, not the Patrick Mahomes Kansas City Chiefs. So let's not give too large a crown to the Tennessee Titans just yet. But I think the Titans are going to be looking to do exactly what it is that the New Orleans Saints are doing at this point, which is building that winning culture. And I think that even if they lost their last two games, New Orleans has built that winning culture. It's clear that they have something that they can build around for their future, that can be their foundation for their future upon which to build a repetitive habit of winning. It was one of the things that Cam Jordan talked about in his lengthy press conference after the game. Of course, it could have been his last home game. We'll see what his future looks like in the great city of New Orleans. But we don't know exactly what to see there, but one of the things, or what to expect there, but one of the things that Cam said was, hey, it's hard when you're losing to learn how to win, but once you figure out how to win and understand how to win, it becomes repeatable. It's the snowball effect. Doesn't mean that you won't lose anymore, but it's way easier to keep winning than it is to win first or win for the first time. And I think that we've seen now New Orleans learn how to win for the first time. Tyler Shough's got 7 starts. He's got a 4-3 record as a starter. The New Orleans Saints have won 4 of their last 6 games, 4 of their last 7 in terms of his starting. But the Saints are moving in the right direction. They're building something. They're scaffolding, right? Putting layer on top of layer on top of layer. And I think that Kellen Moore's choice, look, we've talked a lot about Kellen Moore's play calling. The best play call that he made all season was to play for a winning culture instead of playing for draft picks, was to play for building something repeatable, was to play for the sake of winning as opposed to playing for the sake of drafting. And I think that what that does is that creates a culture, not just that winning culture that we keep talking about, but it creates that culture within the organization and across the team that says they can be contenders, especially in an NFC South that's clearly winnable. No one's trying to win it this year. Carolina with a 23-20 victory over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Those two just can't figure out who wants to play. It reminds me of that episode of South Park when the kids are just trying to lose baseball games so that they can go home. They don't want to go to the playoffs. They don't want to go to state. They don't want to go to nationals. They just want to lose, go home. It feels like the NFC South right now. But look at these New Orleans Saints that are picking up momentum. They're going to want to win this division next year in 2026. And I'll tell you right now, I think they're going to have a good shot to do it because of what Kellen Moore has done. His decision to play for the players as opposed to the picks, I think is the best decision that he's made. And I think that it is the exact example of why it is that Kellen Moore is the right head coach for this moment that the New Orleans Saints are having. He might not be a head coach that's rah-rah, that's going to, ignite anybody with a big speech or anything like that. But you know what he's going to do? He's going to make sure that Taysom Hill gets the yardage to become the first ever player in the Super Bowl era to do what it is that he did. He's going to make sure that Taysom Hill gets a touchdown at the end of the game. He's going to make sure that players are put in the best position so that just in case this is their last home game in front of their fans that have watched them for several years, that it's something memorable and something positive for them to be able to walk away with. You know what that does? That screams loudly to everyone around, hey, this is something you want to be a part of. And later on in the show, I'm going to give you some exact examples of why we know that approach is working. But first, I want to take a look at Tyler Shough's day, which wasn't perfect, but in its imperfection was exactly what the New Orleans Saints needed to see. Let's get to that as we continue on with today's episode of Locked On Saints, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Saints is brought to you by our friends over at Car Gurus. I shared a story not too long ago about me going to an actual used car dealership and trying to buy what was my last car purchase and how excruciating and tedious and annoying that entire process was. And that's not what you want when you go to buy a car. That's supposed to be an exciting thing, right? You got a new ride, you got a new whip, you got everything you're going to be excited about here. But instead, you end up in situations where you're being given the runaround. Everybody's trying to upsell you on something, all that. That's what I love about Car Gurus. First of all, they make sure that you see exactly what it is that you want, because you can filter down everything that you're looking for, all the way down to mileage, trim, features. That way you're only seeing the cars that you're going to be interested in. They make sure that you get what you need over at cargurus.com. Car Gurus connects you with trusted dealerships for a transparent and hassle-free buying experience with over 4 million listings that you can find over at cargurus.com. So buy or sell your car today at cargurus.com. That's CARGURUS.com, cargurus.com. All right, family. New Orleans Saints quarterback Tyler Shough didn't have the perfect game, but in his imperfection, ended up having the game that you absolutely needed from him. I want to break all of this down as we continue to look at this New Orleans Saints 29-6 victory over the New York Jets. Just real quick, people have been asking for more. You can get it with the Everydayer Club here at Locked On. $5 a month, $50 a year will get you ad-free experience, as well as access to our exclusive Discord and members-only merch store. If you want more content, $15 a month gets you our all-access program. Great conversation with myself and Nick Underhill, everything from what we've seen from Tyler Shough and Kellen Moore on down to how we got started in the business and what advice we have for people that want to get started. We've got all that over on All Access because we've got exclusive episodes and much more there. So head over to lockedonsaints.supercast.com or click the link in the description to learn more. The New Orleans Saints have to feel really good about where they are, obviously, and they also have to feel really good about where they are with their quarterback situation, getting some really good play from Tyler Shough. And while he didn't have one of his quintessential games where he completed over 70% of his passes or over 68% of his passes, he still had a very, very good game up against the New York Jets. And he did some things that I think show you a lot of the growth that you're seeing from him. He completed 29. Why did I say 29? That's not even close. 32. I mean, technically it's 3 away, but like neither of those numbers is the number that I was trying to say. 32 passes on 49 passing attempts in this one. The Saints absolutely airing it out in this game up against the New York Jets. If you listen to our pregame show, our kind of keys to victory show, we talked about the middle of the field attack between the numbers and also the need to kind of attack the seams and all that. We saw all of that from this New Orleans Saints team all throughout this game, doing a very good job matching up with that man-heavy defense from Aaron Glenn and the New York Jets. And even though he didn't complete over 68% of his passes or over 70% of his passes, even though he didn't have multiple touchdown passes in this game, although Chris Olave had two touchdown receptions, one from Shough and one from Taysom Hill, who threw a touchdown late in the game to kind of seal that one, or not kind of, to absolutely seal that one. He did all of the things that were necessary to win this football game. Go back and watch the game and watch him pre-snap. Him identifying pressure, where it might be coming from, him doing all of the pre-snap work. He has gotten so comfortable in that area of his game. You can see the leadership as well. When he speaks, he's heard. It was one of the things that Juwan Johnson talked about that after the game, that Tyler Shough has really stepped into a leadership role for this team. Taking guys off to the side to break down film, going and visiting players, spending time with his teammates, working towards a common goal and making sure that all of the players around him are getting his attention. I asked him, what do you think is kind of the philosophy that you're building around creating your brand of leadership? And he said, you have to have an individual relationship with each and every player that you rely on and that you're working with. And it's clear that that is translating from off the field, at the Saints facility, at the players' houses, at different outings and dinners, whatever. It's transferring from off the field to on the field. And it's so entirely clear. One of my favorite passes that I watched Tyler Shough throw in this game was an incomplete pass. He took the snap. He was watching over to the left side of the field. It was as the Saints were going towards the Poydras Street end zone. And Kevin Austin Jr. comes out of a break. He slips. Tyler Shough doesn't rush the pass. He doesn't speed up the clock. He doesn't move on because Kevin Austin Jr. is open. He waits for Kevin Austin Jr. to regain his balance and then puts one on him. Unfortunately, Kevin Austin Jr. not able to come up with it. But great decision-making, understanding of the situation around him, knowing that he has time, not letting himself get sped up and not letting himself get fed up with the fact that Kevin Austin Jr. lost his footing. Instead, stayed on him, waited, put the ball on him, and gave him an opportunity for him to go out there and make a play. How about the touchdown pass to Chris Olave that he almost reeled in? The one that he caught was great. Great play design by Kellen Moore. That'll be part of our film study this upcoming week for All Access members. But the touchdown that almost was, where Tyler Shough put one up towards the back of the end zone and just placed it perfectly where only Chris Olave could have made a play on it. It ends up falling incomplete on a great play by the defensive back. And I'm not mad at Olave for dropping that pass at all, for not coming up with that pass at all, because that was not an easy one to come up with. But he was the only one that was ever going to be able to catch that pass. Tyler Shough didn't try to fit it into a tight window or try to bean it past the defense back or anything like that. He went over the top and put it where only Chris Olave could potentially even make a play on it. Those are the types of things where you're seeing Tyler Shough grow in front of your very eyes. The throws that he's making now are not the throws that he would have made 5 weeks ago, 6 weeks ago, 7 weeks ago. More importantly, I would say, those aren't the throws that he would have made 16 weeks ago in week 1. There's been a lot of, you might feel like, oh man, with all this momentum that New Orleans is building, imagine if they would have started Tyler Shough week 1, you might not have seen the same Tyler Shough. And then if things didn't go well in the early season, you might have risked his confidence and all that. Although I'll say that I retract, I say because I never actually made that statement. But one of the big things that was one of the big I refute that statement. That's what I'm looking for. That was one of the big kind of assumptions around the idea of starting Tyler Shough in week 1 was that, well, what if he loses and things don't go well and then his confidence is shot? Look at the first game that he played against Los Angeles Rams. He got beat up. And then he comes back and he wins a game. And then they lose. And now they've won 3 straight. I mean, clearly his confidence is fine. And I think that in all of the imperfection that we've seen, there was a bit of perfection because Tyler Shough did the things necessary to elevate his players. He didn't get fed up with Kevin Austin Jr. He waited for him to regain his footing and put him on him, giving him an opportunity to make that catch. Going to Chris Olave in the end zone, put the ball where only Chris Olave could catch it. You look at the crossing routes, the throws to the outside, everything, ball placement, exactly kind of where it needed to be. Some things early on in the game where they were a little bit behind, like there was the early red zone drive, Mason Tipton crossing the field, where maybe if that would have been put out a little bit ahead of him, he could have caught that and maybe been able to turn the corner to pick up that first down. But splitting hairs in those situations. Because you know what he also didn't do? Never put the ball in harm's way. Not a single pass that I can recall off the top of my head, I could be wrong, but not a single one that I can recall off the top of my head felt like, ooh, that was almost intercepted. Ooh, that was almost picked. Ooh, that was a bad decision. Ooh, where is he going with the football there? Ooh, why is he throwing there? None of that. None of that. And when you have a game that you're playing so tightly for a little while, which look through the first half of this football game, it was just an exchange of field goals, right? Charlie Smyth missing from 61, but drilling every other field goal and extra point that he had his opportunity to take. And in a game like that, you don't have a lot of room for error. And so not giving up the football, not turning the ball over, not putting the ball in harm's way, it's why Tyler Shough's game might not have been perfect, but it kind of was at the same time. All right, coming up next, the New Orleans Saints are building that winning culture, and it's clear that it's a culture that players want to be a part of. We'll get to that as we continue on with today's episode of Locked On Saints, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Saints brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. The New Orleans Saints came into this game against the New York Jets 6.5-point favorites and absolutely cleared that spread. Now they head to the Tennessee Titans in Nashville, Tennessee. 3-point favorites on the road. Ding, ding, ding. Sound the alarm. The New Orleans Saints are favorites on the road. Now they have a big time opportunity ahead of them to extend that win streak from 3 games in a row to 4 games in a row, which might not sound like months, but it's been a while since the Saints have had a win streak like that. You can get in on that and all of the other NFL action, even after the game has begun, thanks to FanDuel's live betting over at FanDuel.com. The lines and spreads and money lines will all shift and update as the game is ongoing, as players heat up, player props change as well. You can get in on all of it over at FanDuel.com today. So if you want to get in on all the action in the middle of this NFL season, FanDuel.com is the place for you to go. The game moves fast, and so can you. Let's get it, Who Dat Nation. The New Orleans Saints aren't just building a winning culture, they're building a program that players want to be a part of, and nothing made that more evident than the players that we spoke to after the game on Sunday. We appreciate you very much, as always, making us your first listen and being an everydayer here on the show. And we thank you for making us the #1 sports podcast network here at the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Every single player just about that came to the podium, and there were a lot of them. I think we talked to 8 different players plus head coach Kellen Moore after the game this week. Loved it. Almost all of them spoke about how they wanted to be a part of what it is that the New Orleans Saints are building. And I think that's a really, really important detail. We've been sitting here on this show for the past few weeks talking about how, the Saints don't need to worry about their draft position as much. Like right now, they're currently still picking, at the time they're recording this, number 8 overall. And they held the number 2 pick at one point in the season. And so they've fallen from that to pick number 8, but that's fine. That's okay. As long as you're building something that's going to allow you to be able to be a good destination that players want to come to and be a destination where players want to remain. And we're seeing that players want to remain here in New Orleans. This is a team that started 2-10. You're not always going to have a lot of players that are going to go up to the podium and volunteer that they still want to be a part of what's going on here. Cam Jordan, in a contract year for the first time in his career, doesn't have a contract going into next year, doesn't have guaranteed money, doesn't have anything going into next season, said that he wants to be a part of what they're building here. He said he's mad that it has taken this long for the team to kind of get it together and start winning because he wants to enjoy winning with this program. Said that he would absolutely be back here in New Orleans if given the opportunity to do so. Said he'd write his own contract if he could, but obviously not the way that works out. Taysom Hill, another player in a very similar situation like Cam Jordan. Each of them had several family members at the game. Each of them had several different pieces of the game that kind of hinted that maybe it was their last home game in front of an adoring New Orleans Saints audience. But Taysom making it clear, making it evident that he doesn't want to go and play for another team, that he would like to be here in New Orleans, but understands that he doesn't have control of that, but made it clear that he wants to be in New Orleans. Charlie Smyth, hey, he's on a 3-year deal. He ain't got nothing to worry about. He just had tied a franchise record in his 4th ever regular season start as a kicker. What an incredible career Charlie Smyth is on the way to. But he made it evident he wants to be a part of what the Saints are building here in New Orleans. Juwan Johnson, same thing. Proud of what the team is building here and that everyone wants to be a part of it. The Saints are a perfect example right now of their best version in this mold, right? In this version of who they can be, this iteration of who they can be. Because they might only have 5 wins on the season. That's the team that they are. But because of the players that they are and the coaches that they have, it's clear that this is still something that people want to be a part of. And I'm going to tell you right now, that's not going to be limited to just what's happening here in New Orleans. Chris Olave continues to talk about how he wants the extension. He wants to be here, how much he loves the city of New Orleans. These players want to be here. And I'll tell you, when you got a head coach out there who has no previous connection to understand the true impact that Taysom Hill has had over the course of his 9 years here in New Orleans, for him to come in this season, get Taysom Hill on the field late, and have the wherewithal to understand the importance of getting Taysom Hill that incredible 1,000 record, rushing, receiving, passing yards, but also getting him a touchdown in his, what could be his final game in front of Saints fans in the Caesars Superdome. That is an awareness. And it was one of the things that Taysom Hill highlighted after the game was the awareness of Kellen Moore. And he's very aware of what's going on. That doesn't just resonate with Taysom Hill, that resonates with everyone in the locker room, that Kellen Moore had the attention to making sure that Taysom Hill had his final moment, potentially final moment at home, that he got that 1,000 record for the first player ever in the Super Bowl era. And I'll go one step further. It doesn't just resonate with Taysom Hill. It doesn't just resonate with the players in the locker room that are watching Kellen Moore do that for a player. That's going to resonate with every free agent out there that the Saints pursue. Players know the teams that take care of them and the teams that treat them as a commodity, that just kind of want them to fit into this, role, this box, and help them win football games. Saints want you to win football games too, no doubt about it. You can see it here at this point in the year. However, the wherewithal with which Kellen Moore has approached this season, has approached his players, that is going to spread. And players are going to want to be a part of what New Orleans is building. There were all of the conversations, doubts, question marks about whether or not people wanted to be a part of New Orleans, wanted to be a part of the Saints in previous years under Dennis Allen. Even this past offseason, the transition going from Dennis Allen to Kellen Moore, all those question marks out there, they're not going to be present this upcoming offseason because the Saints are doing the things that they need to do to show that they're a player-positive environment, that they're an environment that wants to win with a positive attitude, that is building a winning culture, and that will choose its players over the potential of draft picks. And I cannot stress that last point enough because we see different examples all around the NFL constantly. And here the New Orleans Saints are saying, no, you're here now. Let's go and win some football games. And the Saints are going to be that's going to make the Saints, who are about to have a lot of money to spend, not necessarily this offseason, but going into the offseason after, although they will make money to spend this offseason, make no doubt about it. That's going to make New Orleans a premier destination, a place that players want to come and be a part of a program that treats them like a part of a program. And it's all Kellen Moore, starting with Kellen Moore, and these players that are kind of magnifying it by seeing what it is that they're doing, especially in a win like what the Saints just had against the Jets. All right, fam, let's get to a little bit of lanyap here. For the real ones that made it all the way through the show, appreciate you. Much love to you. Wanted to highlight a couple of the other highlight performances. Good vocabulary, Ross. I wanted to highlight some of the other standout performances from this game. And in particular, I want to start off with Alontae Taylor. I don't know what the future of Alontae Taylor is here in New Orleans. He could potentially look... I think he should look at the market and see what's going to be available for him, especially just from like his own career and advancing his own career. Go and see if somebody's going to allow you to be an outside corner somewhere and all that. He's not going to have that role here in New Orleans, at least not in this defense. And you could see the reason why, because on Sunday when he got that sack against Brady Cook, when he absolutely ran the arc around to get Brady Cook from the blind side, he became the Saints' career leader in sacks amongst cornerbacks. Most sacks by a cornerback in a career here in New Orleans with 7 sacks. He did it during a rookie contract. Pretty incredible stuff there. And to see that from Alontae Taylor, who also almost had a pick 6 at the end of the day. He clearly almost came away with that one. Speaking of an interception, how about Jonas Sanker, man? Jonas Sanker, that rookie safety out of Virginia has been revelatory for New Orleans. I mean, look, they had Julian Blackmon, they had Justin Reed at the beginning of the season. They had a really good tandem of veteran safeties to start the year, an absolute ball hawk in Julian Blackmon. Julian Blackmon plays the first game, plays extremely well, goes back home, and is like, man, I still feel some pain. Goes back to the facility on Monday, bang, he's out for the rest of the season. Really, really tough circumstance there to take place. However, then Jonas Sanker stepped into his new role, his expanded role. And his fit in Brandon Staley's defense has been so evident. He plays so freely. He attacks from all these different places. They allow him to be aggressive. He's a very aggressive player. And the way that he and this coaching staff and this defense all communicate with one another, Jonas Sanker said after the game that Brandon Staley was on the sideline and he said, hey, when they go to 3-by-1, so 3 receivers on one side, 1 receiver on the other side, look for the special. And I think when he's talking about the special, he was talking about sort of the all-go special, where you might see, typically there's landmarks, right? You're trying to hit one of those 4 landmarks on 4 verticals. But if you have 3 players on one side, one of them has to cross the field in order to hit that landmark. I think that's what he was talking about. But usually that kind of crossing route or that deep post, if you will, is usually called a special. And that's exactly what they saw, right? It's 3-by-1. They came out on the field. Jonas Sanker was looking for it. That player crossed the face. And instead of Jonas Sanker allowing him to just cross face, he drove down on the football, comes away with a big interception in return. A perfect example of preparation or film study turning into preparation turning into coaching, and coaching turning into execution on the football field. Beautiful example of exactly that. So shout out to him as well. How about guys like Chase Young getting his 7th sack on the year? Cam Jordan now has 8.5 sacks, 9 seasons, only 9. He becomes only the 9th player in NFL history to do that. Chris Rumph getting involved. We saw a lot over from the defense. Audric Estime, I thought ran well. Didn't run a lot, but I thought ran well and continued to pick up some yards on the ground as well. Had one where he broke a couple tackles on the far sideline and picked up that first down. I love the fact that this New Orleans Saints team that was shorthanded and became more shorthanded during the game. Foster Moreau going out of the game late with an ankle injury in the third quarter. The very next defensive possession that followed that, Brian Brzee leaving with a knee injury. We'll get updates on them later on today when we go to the Saints facility. But despite as shorthanded as they were, this team played with a lot of confidence and a lot of belief in itself. And you're seeing it not only just from the players that kind of stepped in, that had to go from role players to contributors, but you're seeing it from the young core on both sides of the football, absolutely getting it done here for the New Orleans Saints. So all the highlights, all the accolades, all of it's there. But I think the three most important things that we learned about the New Orleans Saints is that the young players are leading the way. Kellen Moore's winning culture is winning. And there are a lot of players that are going to want to be a part of it. All right, family, in tomorrow's episode, we'll break this down even further and get into all the numbers behind the big win over the Jets. We appreciate you very much, as always, for making us a part of your day, part of your routine, for saying yes to me and the show. If you see me, please say hi. If you need anything else or on your New Orleans Saints in between these episodes, make sure you follow me on your favorite social media at Ross Jackson, NOLA. Hit me up. Let me know what the family's doing. Let me know how you living. Let me know how you're momming them. And trust you, that nation. I'll holla at you.